believe how hot it is already.
Buenos días. Hoy en día le tenemos un invitado muy especial. Aquí estoy con Don Kish, aquí en Red Bluff, California. Don Kish es de los mejores dueños de toros aquí en los Estados Unidos. Un hombre que cría su propia línea de toros. Y ahorita vamos a ver un poquito más de sus toros y entrevistarlos. Buenos días, Don. Thank you, Don, for having us here. Thank you for taking time and just and having us at the ranch. Sobre Don le vamos a preguntar un poquito sobre las crías de los toros aquí en los Estados Unidos. Don, I just want to, if you could tell us a little bit how the, in terms of breeding bucking bulls here in the United States, if you could just kind of give us a big picture view of, you know, when it kind of started and where we're at. If you could talk about that in terms of just breeding bulls in the U.S. Not just yourself, but just in general.
Well, it's kind of broad.
Yeah.
Probably the two biggest programs in the United States I ever saw was Charlie Plummer and Bob Barnes. And they started raising bulls in the, I don't know, 40s, 50s, or 60s. I'm not really sure when they started.
Mm-hmm.
But they started a long time ago. And bucking bulls through the 60s, 70s were pretty easy to come across because there was a lot of crossbred cattle in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by the late 70s, the crossbred cattle were disappearing. So to start a breeding program, you had to go to one of those two guys. And for the most part, 40 years later,
mm-hmm.
it's still their two bloodlines. It's still primarily them. And our bloodline came off of Bob Barnaby's lines.
Got it. Okay. So that was, we're talking about 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Yeah.
Now you came into play when, Don? Eso fue en los años 60, 70 y 80. Ahora le vamos a preguntar a Don Kish cuándo empezó el programa de él, de cuándo comenzó él a criar toros él mismo propio.
I think I bought my first cows in 1981. I started with 2 cows and 1 bull.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, nobody was really raising bucking bulls because you could go to a bucking bull sale and buy a bucking bull for $1,500. So everybody thought I was crazy. They didn't understand why you would start a program.
Mm-hmm.
But California, land is so valuable in California, purebred programs took over.
Yeah.
All the ranches out here is purebred Charolais, purebred Limousines, purebred Angus. It's all purebred cattle. So there was no crossbred cattle companies. I used to be able to buy 20 or 30 bulls a week at auction yards.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally got to the point it was 2 bulls a week. So the real only reason we're ahead of the curve on the bucking bull business is because California is ahead of the curve on land. So now primarily, if you're in the rodeo business, you raise your own bulls almost everywhere in the nation. Canada does it, all the United States, everybody does it. So we were very lucky from the standpoint we got into it early. So when everybody else started, we had the bloodline. Everybody, we had the most perfected bloodline going for the most part. One of 3 or 4. So that's where everybody went to buy heifers and bulls.
Good. Entonces, la otra pregunta que le vamos a preguntar es ¿qué era la meta de Don Kish cuando él comenzó a criar estos toros? ¿Y qué tenía en mente hace 30, 40 años atrás cuando él comenzó a hacer esto? ¿Qué él tenía en mente? So when you started out, Don, like in 1981, you first bought your first cow and your first bull. I mean, did you have vision? Did you have like somebody, like a role model or somebody there to guide you? I mean, what was your goal? Like kind of starting into, was it a hobby at first?
No, we were already in the rodeo business. We already had a rodeo company, and it was basically something on necessity.
Mm-hmm.
We realized if you were going to compete against the big herds and the big companies, we didn't have the money. I mean, you couldn't. You can either outspend them or outwork them or outthink them. But we weren't in the position to do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically just had to get ahead of people by doing something first. And when I first started raising bulls, it was basically out of necessity. And we just really, truly just got lucky from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to maintain the bloodlines and keep them going. But there wasn't really there was nobody doing what I was doing. It was when I started, it was basically just out of necessity. And
mm-hmm.
if you wanted to excel in the rodeo business, you're gonna have to raise them, because you'd go to a rodeo and watch a bull that was just clear up here, and you go, I can't find that at the auction yard. I'm not finding that.
Yeah.
And you'd have to go through 1,000 to find that. So you had to increase your odds. And so to increase your odds was by perfecting a bloodline and breeding it. And I really, I was 18, 19 years old. I had no clue what I was doing. I never, when we first got in the rodeo business, I never rode a horse. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. You know, so we've had a lot of friends, you know, I mean, a lot of people taught me a lot of stuff, and a lot of good, you know, Red Bluff was a big cow community and a lot of ranchers. So during the week, we'd go out and mark and brand calves and help people work, and, you know, in return, a lot of people, you know, taught me a lot about cows and, you know, helped me out. There's just, I mean, the help, you can't even appreciate the help that was given to me by the old timers and stuff. That would, you know, so I learned a lot along the way, but I didn't know anything when I started. It was just blind.
Entonces, del tiempo que comenzaste en 1981, ¿hasta cuánto tiempo dilató que vos pensabas que tenía un grupo de vacas ya formada ahí a tu gusto, que te dieron buenos resultados? So when you started, you said you had 1981, you had about 1 to 2 cows. How long did it take you to actually to the point where you had a good set of cows and you were producing quality bucking bulls out of those cows on a consistent basis? When did you feel like, okay, I think we got it, we're there?
We were very lucky. It happened right off the bat. I bought 2 cows one year.
From where?
I just bought them at the auction yard. I just went and bought 2 kind of wild, I mean, my version was just buy wild cows. I didn't really know why or what or anything. All I knew was we had Red Rock and we wanted to pass his bloodline on. So it was a starting point. And then the next winter, there was a lot of crossbred cows sold there one weekend. So I went and bought 21 more. And I bought a bull from, it was a Bob Barnby bred bull, it was a little bull called Fonzie. And I bought him to put on Red Rock's heifers. Well, I put him as a cleanup bull one year, and there was 11 sons, and 6 of them went to NFR. So we got lucky right off the bat. Well, those cows became such a base just from the start. I mean, right off the bat, I had cows that were just producing. I mean, I'm telling you, it was just stupid luck. I mean, you had the idea that it would work, but you didn't realize it was going to work near to that level and that quick and that successful. I mean, Wolfman's one of the most famous bulls ever. He's probably, you know, you could actually say he might be the most famous bull that ever came out of a breeding program once somebody just initially set out to raise a bucking bull. And he was my first calf crop. I mean, you know, how do you fail when Wolfman's in your first calf crop and you go, and then, you know, and he, for 20 years, he died when he was 19. So, I mean, everything he touched, his cows were great cows. All of his sons bucked, and you go, it just made it very simple, very easy, and it made you kind of famous very fast. And you didn't even know why. You go, what did I do? I didn't do anything. I mean, the bulls do it, and you go, it was just really lucky, you know. But I was lucky. They excelled, and then we had so many people around to help teach stuff. You know, we learned so much. It was unbelievable what happened in a 4 or 5 year run. But we really were good at it right off the bat. I mean, within a year or two, it was just it took nothing. You know, so I was just very fortunate.
Great. That's good to know. Entonces, también le vamos a preguntar, Don, de cuáles han sido los mejores toros más influentes, los más famosos que ha tenido y cómo le han producido cuando se le ha echado esos toros en las vacas. So you named off one of your great bulls, which was Wolfman. Can you tell us a couple more of those famous bulls that came down the line, or some of your personal favorites? Maybe people just don't know them that well. And also, out of the ones you named, can you just kind of attach those back to your breeding program and how they affected your breeding program as well? So,
sure.
Yeah.
Probably the most famous bull we're known for that we raised was Cash, and he was out of a 2 legit daughter, and he was bred to Mr. T, and Mr. T was, I think, like 1985 bucking bull of the year, and I think Cash went to finals 8 or 9 years in a row, which is he tied the record. I mean, the record I think is 8 years in a row, and he tied it. And if I retired him, and they would have took him that year, I should have bucked him, finished out that year, and he would have broke the record. But I retired him, and he was just getting a little older and slow. But he's probably the most famous bull that we're famous for. I mean, that's you know, almost anybody knows anything about bucking bulls has heard of Cash.
Yes.
You know, very, very famous bull. And then we had a bull raised we called Ugly. He was a 2 legit son, and Ugly was. You know, there was a span in the PVR standings. They would list, they score their bulls. Well, there was a span. I don't know how long it was in a 2 or 3 year span. Cash and Ugly were 1 and 2, or 2 or 3, 1 and 3 somewhere. They were always in the top. So for a 2 or 3 year span, they were in their top 5, always, about a 3 year run. So So to have two bulls in the scoring system where they score bulls down, the top two bulls or the top within the top 5 for 3 years, so pretty hot dog bulls there. You know, it's pretty hot stuff going on. But I think probably the greatest bull I ever raised was a bull called No Can Do, and you know, he was I think he was the best bull we ever raised, but he didn't make it very long.
Yeah, he wasn't around long enough.
And he was a Too Legit son also.
He was a Too Legit son.
Yeah, he was a Too Legit son also. And Too Legit.
Yes, please talk about Too Legit.
Too Legit was a bull that I got. He was a Little Oscar son, and Little Oscar was, I believe, was a 1982 Bucking Bull of the Year, and Little Oscar was a Bob Barber bred bull.
Talking about Oscar Velvet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they called him. I mean, the bull got it every time there was a new program came out. They changed his name. I mean, it's a AKA forever behind him. You know what they would call him. I call him Little Oscar because that's originally his original name was called Little Oscar, and that's what I knew because I saw him as a 2-year-old, and to me, his Little Oscar for life.
Got it.
But Little Oscar and Fonzie were brothers. Mm-hmm. The last year before they sent Oscar to the Hall of Fame, I'm going to say around 76 or 77. When they loaded him up to take him there, he was out in the neighbor's cows, and they ended up getting 4 bull calves from him, just from the neighbor's deal. And that was Little Oscar, a little bull called Black Velvet, Fonzie, and they said the other bull, I don't know what happened to the other bull, but they said he really bucked. So there was only 4 of them, and they were all excellent. So when I bought Fonzie to get to Bob Barnaby's bloodline, there was only, probably in the whole world, there was only 2 or 3 bulls left alive anywhere. Yeah. And at one time on the West Coast, Barnaby blood was in every herd walking. And here through the 50s, 60s, 70s, there was he had a BB on him, and there were BB bulls everywhere. Everybody had BB bulls, and they were just everywhere. I mean, every herd was full of them. And when I wanted to get my hands on one, there was only 2 of them left alive that we could find anywhere, and it was Fonzie and Little Oscar.
You hunted those down.
Well, I bought Little Oscar for $7,500, and I took him up, had him at a rodeo, and I got to the rodeo, and the check was back in the gate a month later, and they took him back. To put my check back in the gate. So I owned Little Oscar at one time, but I ended up buying Fonzie at the NFR sale, and everybody thought I was crazy, but I knew I wanted that Barnaby blood, and he was just a little old dying little gray Bramer bull.
Yeah, I remember seeing.
But Little Oscar, through another guy, raised Too Legit, and I got my hands on Too Legit, and Too Legit was really probably could have been one of the world's best sires ever, but he died young too. Mm-hmm. So we didn't even realize how many of his calves bucked till the ABBI came along and started the database. And then it was amazing how many of them good bulls were Too Legits. I mean, he was just ugly and, you know, Real Deal and Freeloader, and they're just, every time we kept doing this, here's all these NFR bulls, and they're 90% his. Yeah. I mean, it's everything in my herd that we probably bred between Red Rock and Gold Buckle and I don't even think my Mr. T and all my original base was about a Red Wolf, you know, and there was an original base of 7 or 8 bulls that I bred for probably 8 or 9 years. Mm-hmm. Everything came back to Wolfman or Too Legit. I mean, everything, and that was the backbone. And I think there'd be way more Wolfman blood, but most of his cattle were dead and gone by the time the ABBI came around. You know, most of it there was, you know, that when we were breeding Wolfman was, you know, like probably in the early 90s, and the ABBI, I don't know when it's been around since probably 2000 maybe. Mm-hmm. So, you know, Wolfman was pretty much dead and gone by the time the ABBI came around. So when we started doing the blood work, it was hard to trace some of his stuff, you know, I mean, it just wasn't, but what we did trace, they were all good. Yeah. You know, so that's pretty much the backbone of, and Too Legit was.
Now we're talking about 1991, 92, those bulls.
Yeah.
About 91, 89 through 92, yeah. somewhere in that line. Yeah. So right now if you could say, like, you know, the 2 most influential sires probably were Wolfman and
Too Legit.
And the majority of your cows go back. You can trace them back to those.
If I had to start everything over tomorrow, and I only could get to those 2 bulls, I know you'd be successful really quick if you had those 2 animals, knowing what I know about what they accomplished. Mm-hmm. It would be totally different.
Yeah.
Very, very fast. Very, very fast. If you just knew what those 2 did. Yeah. I used to tell people you could breed Fonzie to a fence post and splinters will throw you off. I said with Wolfman, I said, yeah. Wolfman's, that didn't matter what we bred him to. It just didn't matter. Everything bucked.
Yeah.
Everything bucked out. I mean, you go, they were little, but the cows were famous, were fabulous cows. You know, they were all little cows, but they were fabulous cows.
Producing cows.
Yeah.
So let's talk, ahorita que estamos hablando de toros y cuál han sido los mejores toros de él para la crianza, quiero preguntarle a Don, ¿cómo de tantos toros que tiene, cómo él escoge el dos, tres toros que van para la cría, que van a ser el padrote, que van a ser la fundación de la próxima generación? Entonces, Don, with so many bulls to choose from, how do you select your 2, 3, 4 breeding bulls for the year? I mean, how do you go about doing that?
Well, I used to just find the best bull I could find and breed it. I didn't have that. I mean, I've always had a lot of bulls around, so our selection was, you know, most guys are trying to buy a bucking bull. They've got to go buy one. Mm-hmm. We go on the Krill 500 and start picking. So, you know, the bloodline wise, it's pretty easy. Mm-hmm. What we're doing now is we'll run in 120 bull calves, buck them one time, put all the good ones in one pen, and then pull out all the good ones, their conformation, mm-hmm. and then we take all the ones with good conformation, then we pull out their papers on them and pick them from the best papers. Mm-hmm. So when it's done, there's basically a 4-way system by the time they get there. Well, the 3-way, they got to buck first, mm-hmm. and then you take the conformation next, and then we take their pedigree third.
Got it.
So the bulls we bucked here Friday night, it ended up being really a funny deal. That was the first year I ever really did it that way, mm-hmm. and they were 3-year-olds. So we bucked these bulls, put all the good ones in the pen, and said, okay, let's take the ones that are built right, that I like the looks of. Now let's see what their papers tell us.
Got it.
And then it'll all be crystal ball sons out of ugly daughters. And you look at that and you go, amazing. Yeah. It is amazing how that nucleus comes like right there, and you go, wow. Yeah. It's there, just the backbone is just there. So ugly being a too legit son, it comes back again. The daughters are worth a fortune. I mean, because they're your backbone. And then here, crystal ball was. I'm not sure how Crystal Ball was bred, but he was. I mean, we bucked Crystal Ball forever, and he was. I believe he was a Cash son, maybe, but you know, but the cow the Cash came out of was a too legit son, also, or too legit daughter. Mm-hmm. So that you go bam, bam, bam. There it comes. It all comes in a row again.
And that's
in the bucking bull industry here. We're basically way ahead of anybody else anywhere else in the country, but we still don't have that much knowledge on it because you know it's taken me 30 years to even get to that level. Well, now there's people that are raising bucking bulls now, and they're learning to do it right off the bat. Yeah. You know, because they're starting to see, you know, that one, they can buy heifers that we sell, and those heifers give them immediately success right off the bat. First calf crop out, they will raise bucking bulls. They're not sure why. They'll be like I was. They won't know why, but they will. Yeah. But you know, they're able to start paralleling what we do through the AVBI and follow the lineage. They can copy what I'm doing because they can get online and see what bulls I'm breeding, and they'll say, well, isn't that funny? Look what he's breeding. Yeah. You know, so then they start looking for this. Everybody starts looking for the same thing. They try to mimic what you're doing. So there's a reality. The next 15 or 20 years, the bucking bull industry is going to get way ahead of the cowboys around here, which they already are. Yeah. I mean, basically the bulls are way ahead of the cowboys. You know, I mean, I've heard people say on TV they're going to start breeding programs for bull riders, and it's
you need to get
fairly
that.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fairly true. You know, the bull riders are, you know, they're not used to speed, they're not used to freshness, and you watch some of these bulls and they're how fast they are, and it just catches people off guard. And it's coming to, you know, it used to be we were the only herd known for speed. Yeah. Well, it's coming everywhere. I mean, it's coming everywhere.
Yeah. And then now we talked a little bit about your bull selection. Now let's talk about your cow selection. Ahora le quiero preguntar a Don, que estamos platicando un poquito de los toros de crianza, él cómo lo va a seleccionar. Ahora quiero preguntarle de las vacas, cómo guarda las vacas buenas y qué hace con las vacas malas y cómo le dan resultados a las vacas. So Don, in terms of your cows, how do you go about managing the cows and culling the cows and you know, how do you go about culling cows, I guess, and keeping just the good ones?
Well, the really good cows, they die of old age. I had a Red Rock cow that was, she died last one they went before last, and she was born in 85.
85.
So that would then make her 95, you know, 24, 25 years old.
Yeah.
And gave us a calf every year of her life. And we'll have several 20-year-old cows. So the good cows, if they have the Wolfman blood or two legit blood, they will die of old age. Well, now we're finding, we're really happy with the ugly as a female sire. His females are more than his bull calves buck, but they don't buck really good. Well, the females are really good produced cows. So like those cows will die of old age.
Got it.
So you're just constantly trying to find the next cows that are, what ends up happening in the buck and bull industry is their longevity is so short that by the time you really know something historically what they are, they're usually dead and gone.
Yeah.
Because the bull,
sold or something.
yeah, the bulls only live till 10 or 12 years old. So by the time if you start bucking when he's 4, you breed him for a few years, and then by the time those bulls get to be 4-year-olds, the bull's out somewhere else and he's 11 or 12 years old. So you go, damn, should have kept him, but you don't know, because by 13 or 14 most bulls die. Well, the cows live so much longer, so the cows can clean up your mistakes on your bulls, because you go, okay, none of these cows leave again. Had I known what I know about Too Legit, I'd have never sold any of his cows.
Yeah.
But I sold a lot of his cows at the time we needed money, and they were worth, everybody wanted them.
Yeah.
Now when I find other herds everywhere, and I look at a bull here and a bull there, and you buck and bull of the year is out of a Too Legit daughter, a buck and bull of the year is out of a Too Legit daughter.
Yeah.
So we get to where, there's certain cows, okay, none of those leave, and no daughters out of those cows leave.
Yeah.
Then you go, okay, now none of those daughters out of those cows, out of Crystal Ball will leave. None of those daughters out of the Too Legit daughters bred to Ugly will leave. And they're just certain combinations that will stay.
Got it.
Unless somebody walks up and really wants to spend some money for some high quality cows. So the cows actually fix your bull mistakes. When you screw up on a bull, you go, okay, how many cows die here?
Yeah.
They die of old age.
Yeah.
So the cows are, to me, the cows are what they give you the reprieve. They're your savior for, they make your stupid mistakes smart again.
Yeah,
so.
the good ones will cure that.
Yeah.
So in terms of cow, do you find that, for example, if a certain sire, his son, because you were mentioning something real funny about Ugly, saying his bull calves weren't what the females or his daughters are producing in terms of calves. Do you find that if a sire produces good sons, usually his female counterparts, his daughters, also tend to be good producers? Not necessarily.
It's very hard, because, like I said, the thing that kills the buck and bull industry is if the cow has 3 heifers in a row, then has 2 bulls in a row, then has heifer, and all of a sudden now they're 18 years old and they're dead.
Yeah.
By the time you have enough history to prove one thing or another, everything's gone. Because it takes years to prove it.
Yeah.
So it's very hard. But we're starting to find cows that have had really good bulls every year of their life out of completely different sires. So you look at it and you go, I've got some.
Maybe it's a cow here.
Yeah, you go, well, I've got like some Winchester daughters, and Winchester to me traditionally wasn't a real good herd sire, but there's a lot of people who had some really good luck with Winchester calves. I sold him, and they've had some really good luck with him. Well, I didn't have that good luck with his bulls having much longevity, but one of my best cows is a Winchester daughter. And you go, everything out of 136 and 135 bucks. They're 2 little itty bitty 600-pound cows. You wouldn't give 2 cents for them, but everything out of them bucks. And it's amazing. You go, that doesn't matter what we breed them to, they buck. So you get combinations that you didn't see coming. And you go, and you won't know. The only thing to save them cows is they're going to live to be, they were 91s. So what's that make them? They're coming 14, 15-year-old cows. And,
yeah.
So you got all of a sudden, because they lived to be 14 or 15 and they've lived, now you start getting enough history, but they got to get to 12, 13, 14 years old before you get any history to know anything. Anything more than that is it's just really luck, or you follow it way more. And there are people that follow their bloodlines way more, but the AV guys allowed you to follow your bloodline so much more. Years ago, we just had to go by your gut. When I first started doing it, you just had to go by, watch them say, well, I think those are Wolfman's daughters, I think those are those so-and-sos. And you just had to go by your instincts, how we're handling them and saying the characteristics are the same here, the characteristics are the same. Now the bloodlines with the paperwork, the blood work, it's totally different.
Great, great. Ahora, Don, queremos hablar un poquito de los toros, cómo comienza de crianza de chiquito hasta ya formado toros de 4 o 5 años que lo llevan al rodeo todos los fines de semana. y a ver cómo es el proceso que hace Don Kish en formando un animal de rodeo. Don, so let's get back to the bull side of the business here. Can you talk to me about how your program works in terms of developing your bull to be rodeo ready, to hit the trucks week in, week out, from the time he's weaned to the feeding program, to the time he's weaned to 2, 3, 4 years old? What do you do when he's 2? What do you do when he's 3? And if he's ready at 4 or 5? Or talk to me about that.
That is by far the hardest thing we do. But when we go to a rodeo, that's almost a vacation. Because the rodeo, once you've got to that level, is fairly simple. It's just get up in the morning, load the bulls, do that part. But getting the bulls ready is where all the work is, because you can run them in as 2-year-olds and buck them once or twice with these remote control dummies, and you can run them in as 3, buck them a couple more times. But if you start with 100, say you have 120 bull calves, and you go, I'm going to give every one of them 10 trips before I start getting rid of anything. Well, that's 1,200 trips of bulls.
Yeah.
Well, if you start doing the math, it's impossible to buck 1,200 trips of bulls in a year, let alone your calves. So you take your 2-year-olds, and I want to buck them 5 times. I take my 3-year-olds, I want to buck them 7 times. I want to take the 4-year-olds and buck them. Then you go, okay, I suddenly have to find a place to get 3,000 trips.
Got it.
Well, if you go to a rodeo and you buck 60 bulls a weekend, and you go to 30 rodeos, you're bucking 1,800 trips in a year.
Yeah.
Well, where do I find these 3,000 trips?
Yeah.
And you go, and when people tell me, I've had people say, hey, he raises 250 bulls, and I go, no, he doesn't.
Yeah.
I said, it's almost impossible. I mean, at our biggest, when we were the biggest, I sat down one day just kind of messing around and calculated our very biggest when we rode in our very hardest. And, we don't have much bull help when we go to rodeos. We do most of them ourselves. We figure we bucked around 3,000 to 3,500 trips a year. We now buck about 1,800 trips a year.
Yeah.
So you go, it's almost physically impossible to buck 3,500 trips a year. So if you're at a rodeo, somebody's got to be at your house bucking your bulls. Well, I don't let anybody buck my bulls. I do it. I mean, I'm present every day we buck anything. I watch every cow. I try to watch every animal buck. So that is by far the hardest part, and the remote control dummies have helped a lot. So we take bulls, and we'll buck a set of bulls, and I go, okay, if this bull buck's good enough, after one trip, he can go to a rodeo. He's ready. And in this one here, we'll buck 2 or 3 times, he's ready. This one we'll buck 10 or 15 times, and he's finally ready. And you guys, they're all different. They just kind of go around the board a little bit different. I've had bulls, and I've had people tell me you can't do it, but I've had bulls we bucked here one time, I took them straight to a PBR event. And they tell you, oh, no, you don't, no, you don't. And I go, I had one bull that I took to a fraternity in Wichita Falls, Texas, and we called him Smoking Gun, and I bucked him one time there and took him back there, and he won second.
Yeah.
And I bucked him one time.
Just with the dummy.
Just with a dummy.
Yeah.
And we took him back there and bucked him twice, and he won second there. And he won second a bunch of very good class of bulls.
Yeah.
And you go, so you can do it. I mean, there are some of them that just, right off the bat, buck.
Good.
And others take more time.
And then in terms of age-wise or size-wise, when do you feel an animal is ready to hit the road to have a cowboy on top of them? It varies with each animal, but generally not less than 4 years old, or
it just depends upon their pedigree and their bloodline. There are some. I got a bucking bull now we call Big Dreams. That's a Charolais bull. Jumped the fence and got on my cow, so I kept a handful of calves. And so at 3 he weighed 1,800. So he was able, as a 3-year-old, excuse me, I bucked him quite a little bit. As a 4-year-old, he went really hard. When I was a 5-year-old, he's going to get bucked a lot this year because he is a big, huge, stout bull. And then you'll have other bulls that 3 don't weigh 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really get to go. It's just they're all different. I mean, you got to, and then you look at how much energy they exert. Some of them exert so much energy that he needs a lot more time off. Because you watch, like a Wolfman type of bull. He exerts so much energy. Once a week will be plenty, and even once a week is tough on him because by the time you truck them, haul them, feed them, move them around, they're losing more weight than they're gaining. Yeah. Well, they need their weight for energy, so every animal's a little different. You got to watch. If they stand there shoot, do they expend a lot of energy just getting mad, or do they stand there and take it? Because if they fight the shoot a lot, they expend a lot of energy. If they stand there and take it, that bull can go a little bit more than the other one. Yeah. So it's just kind of it's just a managing deal. You watch them all, and they're a little bit different. And it's the hardest. I always tell everybody, if you go to a rodeo and you see a set of 40 bulls that are 4 to 5 years old and they're all really good, they're really buck, there's a lot of work in that set of bulls. Somebody's done a lot of work. Most herds you go to them, there's going to be they'll get somebody unload a truckload of bulls, and there'll be, and I'm assuming that they're all quality bulls that the guy unloads, which most guys can't even unload 30 quality bulls, but if they do, there'll be 5 3-year-olds, 5 or 6 4-year-olds, 5 or 6 5-year-olds, 5 or 6 6-year-olds, and they'll always have to unload a couple 8 or 9-year-old bulls.
Yeah.
You know, because they didn't have any one age group that gave them any depth.
Yeah.
So there's, you know, out of 30 there will be, so they go, you're really only looking at 5 or 6 out of each age group. And, you know, I would assume we're probably one of the few companies, and I know there's probably a few others around, that can literally go put on a rodeo with all 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
And take 40 or 55-year-olds.
Yeah.
And you don't see that
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah, you don't see that. You also don't see people taking or unloading a truckload full of bulls with one brand on them, and that's something that I think
Well, that is
the
probably
privilege to do. Yeah, you don't see that anywhere, and this is the only place you'll see that.
I think that is something that, you know, if you actually want to say you're proud of something, that's probably something I really enjoy the most. We're probably, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm going to say we're probably the only rodeo company walking that is solely self-sufficient, has solely one iron bulls, and they're quality bulls. I mean, there's people that have one iron bulls, but it doesn't mean they're quality.
Yeah.
You know, and I have two other brands in my herd now, because just I've loaned bulls out to some friends of mine enough, between Nathan and Brian and Bill, that you know, I'm taking their calves and using them. But I mean, when you look at them, they're bred. They're basically, it's the same bloodline, but I'm just getting too old, fat, and slow to do it. So these guys come in and they want to help do it, and they really like it. They really enjoy it. And they're good, very good people, and fun to be around. So you know, I've slowed my side down and letting their sides pick up a little bit. But the bloodline, I mean, they may not be one iron bulls, but in my eyes, they're still one iron bulls, because they're all our bloodline. So it's the same thing. So I can't really say they're one iron bulls, but they are. You know.
Yeah.
I mean? When I look at it, you know, I haven't bought an outside bull for. I mean, for a while, every other year, I would buy one outside bull to introduce outside blood in my breeding program. Mm-hmm. So I bought them, but I didn't buy them. I didn't need them as rodeo bulls, and I don't think I've bought a bull since probably 1986. You know, so we basically for 20 years have been self-sufficient, and nobody can. I don't believe there's anybody can say that. Dylan Page might.
Yeah.
You know, Jerry Nelson might. There's a few guys, but not guys that have been putting on 30 rodeos a year for 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, not major players. I mean, Dylan's probably as close as there is, but he does buy a lot of outside bulls. He'll buy, you know.
And he has a lot of other business interests, where half interest in selling bulls that way.
So there's a comparison, but there is no comparison. But I mean, and Dylan's done a fabulous job at what they've done.
Yeah.
But you know, it's still different. I don't think there is a company that does what we do.
Yeah. That's why we kind of found Don Kish to interview him, just because he is. They call you the bull guru around here, right? That's right. So one last question, because I didn't think it was going to go this far, but talking bulls, this is what happens when you talk bulls. You kind of go over on time. So the last question I had is just in terms of feeding a bull before he goes to buck, and in terms of giving him water. La última pregunta que le vamos a preguntar es la forma de que le da comida a su toro y la agua que le da antes de jugarlo. ¿Cómo prepara un toro para irlo a jugar en términos de comida? So before you buck a bull, how do you, in terms of feed and watering him, you know, do you have certain guidelines you follow in terms of, hey, I take water off, 2 hours before the show, or I take food off his plate 5 hours before the show? Is there a certain guideline that you follow?
There is. For the most part, feed, I take them off feed just when we start sorting. If the rodeo starts at 1, we have to start sorting around 9 or 10. Mm-hmm. So they get off feed around 9 or 10, and that's bull riding's last. So if you start sorting them at 10, the rodeo's at 1, the bull riding will be at 3. They're off feed for 4 or 5 hours. That's usually plenty, unless they're old bulls or exceptionally heavy bulls. But most of our bulls don't get that type of weight on them. So they don't pack that much feed in their belly. They're just not that type of animal. And I never take them off water.
Okay. Until the minute they're
just when they come out of the corral. I mean, I try to leave them in the corral with water at all times. It's 120 around here a lot in the summer, 102. I mean, we have rodeos that, it gets exceptionally hot. And my attitude always was, when I played football and basketball and baseball when I was in high school and stuff growing up, they didn't take me off water. I mean, I think you need, I've always been a believer that when people take their animals off feed and water for so many hours, then when they finally do get back on it, they just tank up. And that's where the belly aches and stuff come from, because they have to go attack it. So I sit there and go, I'm not off my water, and I'm outside in that heat all the time, so I go, they need their moisture. So I've never done it. I watch people walk up and put plyboard over the water troughs and take them off water for 12 hours, and then after they buck their bull, doesn't buck any better than ours, and then as soon as they put them back in the pen, that bull walks over there and sucks up 30 gallons of water. And I'm going, I don't understand the theory. I go, if you could sit there and put me on tape and watching bulls go side by side and say that bull jumped 3 feet higher, spun twice as fast, and has a way better buck off rate, then I'll say, okay, you sold me.
Yeah.
But they're not selling me. I mean, because I just don't see it. So like I said, we bucked some bulls yesterday that were exceptionally heavy. So I brought them a couple hours earlier. Well, by the time we got to the rodeo, they were shrunk to me almost a little too much, but they still buck good because it's their first rodeo of the year. They're fresh, so they got away with it. But if I did that every day, every weekend, they'd be bones by September.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Don. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And muchas gracias, entonces.
15,000, so that's 17.5 right now.
Here's Lynn Upmore, Donnie, on Speed Freak.
All right, he took Dwayne Evans' place, got injured. Donnie Kish bull. This is really a neat little bull right here. Jump kick out there, go either way, likes to go to the left. That'll be away from Lynn's hand. But he's real catty, real electric. Kind of a trademark of the California crew, Kish and Ground. Here comes left turn. Lynn Upmore is in trouble.
Donnie, you could see it coming.
Pretty bull.
Yeah, just walked on those front feet and took that left turn, and down comes Lynn Upmore.
Well, he comes here as an alternate, and,
yes.
and comes in cold to get on, and gosh, that's almost impossible. That he gets on, has a chance at $20,000 day money, and had a good bull. He had an opportunity.
A little earlier, the Ted Deuce went around on. Put it on him, Jeremy. Come on. Put it on him. They're ready. Get him set. The electricity is in the air. Right in. Oh, come on. Get him, boys. Help him. He's loose. Man. Trip. He got the hop, skipping, and the jumping out here like a big rabbit and did not use his normal power. The degree of difficulty that the bull provides is what the judges are watching as well. I'm not trying to side with him, but remember what you're watching.
All right, take a look at the bull that was named the Bull of the Finals 1 year ago. They called him Wolfman of the Growney Brothers Rodeo Company. Take a look at the man who just won his second Canadian title, Darrell Mills. Ho, 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 ho. Royal World Standings, and it changed a little right at the end of the year, but he still came in here among the top 3. And while he gets set to go in round 6, 2 Legit, we're going to stay with the California company of the Growney Brothers, is the bull that he has drawn. Seamus has made about $9,900, just under the 10,000 mark. Would like to add 11,000 or better than that right now.
He took a pretty bad punch in the face the other night with a hind foot. And I guarantee you one thing. These old bulls kick you in the head. It'll scramble you. He's all right. Just set up there and come on. What? Nope.
Well, thank you. I hear it coming from the fans already. Look at Dale. Woodard. What's wrong, Dale? Are your hands cold?
Montana, it's time for you to change the pace of things. We have only got 4 on the scoreboard. Only
Gentlemen, one right here. And he left the cowboy.
Monuments stand on the graves of the famous dead, while other animals are building legends of their own.
Bull riders in rodeo have been thrown off the back of this little bull.
Animals like the great bull Oscar.
Unwritten in 200 tries, here's Oscar.
Talking about fast. He's the fastest bulls I've ever been on, I think. He got going so fast that the G's were just pulling on my face. It just reared me back and my feet went up over my head and it flipped me out of there.
Never been rode yet, has he?
No. He leaped out of that. He jumped about that high when he left the chute there with me. My dad pulled my rope, you know. He jumped out of there and just kicked and almost kicked my old man off the back of the chute. And you talk about alley man left. He wouldn't have. He started 100 miles an hour and he was going 1,000 before I broke me out of there.
What do you think, Gary? Go in that back door on him?
I'll tell you what, I thought it was. And, he wants to pull you back and blow you out that back. I think if I got him again, I'd really stay out over him.
I figured him for the back door, kind of just get that arm behind your head and hump and pump and get over there.
You know, I kind of had my strategy plan drawn on him. I was wanting to come in the back door, you know.
Yeah.
And once I did, it reared me back on my arm and I got my feet to floating. They just floated right up in his neck and just...
Live and learn.
Oscar's reputation as an unrideable bull grew and spread even beyond the rodeo circuit in America. And finally it was challenged by a famous Mexican bull rider, a charro named Elias Arreola. Elias Arreola had never seen American bucking bulls.
This next bull has never been ridden. He's thrown some of the greatest bull riders in rodeo.
Bruce Holthouse.
Here's Bruce Holthouse on Oscar. Let's watch him.
When I have 10 years old, I'm riding my first bull.
He's ridden a bull about 300 times. He's never been thrown off but 3 times in his lifetime.
I want to ride bulls, you know. I know he's good for me. And 2 hands in 5 seconds.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, our next guest,
We claim he can ride him.
and a lot of you know about him. He comes from Jalisco, Mexico. His name is Elias Arreola.
Elias Arreola will attempt to ride Oscar, the famous unrideable bull of RSC Rodeo Company, on a $10,000 wager.
Actually, it's a bet. Us charros are betting against the cowboys, the American cowboys.
I've worked with the bull quite a bit. I got $100 on the bull. I don't think that Mexican boy's going to ride him.
He will ride with 2 hands, the way he rides in Mexico, and must stay on the bull for 5 seconds.
Okay? Wait.
He sets his hands. He's ready. He gives a nod. Watch out.
Talk to him, Jack. Elias Areola was on that bull only 2 seconds. Oscar remains unridden.
Pretty good bull, huh? How far you ride?
2 seconds. 1 second and a half.
One more and I figure you ride.
And right before bulls, you know, it's a little slow. Slow, more slow. Not this one.
Well, I'm here to get on the toughest bull in the rodeo business. And after the national finals, I didn't draw him there. Well, after the finals, I was rather disappointed that I didn't get a shot at him this year. So today's our shot. The adrenaline that flows through your veins when you have to get on a tough animal like this, it's probably an all-time high. It would be to me what the alcohol is to the alcoholic, or what maybe the dope would be to the dude that's on the drugs. Something that's tough for me to explain, but to ride a tough bull like this is something that it's a challenge. It's something that I guess the life that I live is a challenge. You're always taking a chance. It's a game of chance, a game of luck, and it's something that you yourself have to do. If you ride a tough animal, if I can ride a tough bull like Oscar, if I ride Oscar, then I've done it. I haven't had the help of any teammates or anybody else. It's just old Larry.
It's that one more unridden bull to try. Larry Mahan's chance to get on Oscar. With no crowd, no money, one man, one bull. Rodeo.
It's like hold. No. Okay. A nice shot. Okay, slow and easy. Hold this minute. Okay, hold on. Hold this minute. Hold this minute. Get a little more. Okay. More. Get some more. How's that? Pretty good? That's good. Hold. Okay, let's go.